Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the weekly webinar. So glad you could join us. This is Ben Smith. I'm the Director of Investor Relations for Real Wealth Network, and we do this fun little ritual every Thursday at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, or whatever time it is, and whatever time zone you happen to be listening. So thanks so much for joining us. Love doing this. Love bringing various affiliates to everyone's attention. And today we've got Jacksonville, Florida. We love talking to Jacksonville, especially because, for years, Jacksonville specialized in existing construction and they were good properties, and he still does that. But now we've got the additional ripple of new construction, and it's not limited to Jacksonville. I won't steal any thunder. He'll get to all that in a minute. But in addition to single family, there's some multifamily. So you've got a plethora of choices with our Jacksonville, Florida affiliate, and we will go over all of that in today's webinar, which happy to do that. If you could advance for me, we'll go to the friendly slide number 2 and talk about whatever it's talking about. Oh, the wonderful disclaimer. Alrighty, so brace yourself everybody, but the strategies mentioned today may not be appropriate for you or for everybody. Other options not mentioned may be more suitable for your circumstances. So whatever you do, always a good idea to consult your personal accountant, tax advisor, and or attorney to discuss your specific situation. Past performance never a guarantee of future results. Real estate purchases are subject to investment risks. I mean, it is real estate, just like stocks are stocks. So, that can include the possible loss of amounts invested. So while we do everything we can to maintain accurate and current information, possibility of errors and updates always exist. So do your due diligence, trust what we say, but verify what we say. Do a little Google search, look around, enter people's names, do your own research, make sure that you personally are comfortable with investing in whatever we're talking about. Always a good idea, and a good idea in life in general. So our upcoming event coming up pretty soon, about 3 weeks from now, Saturday the 20th of October, we're going to be in San Mateo, just south of SFO, real close to the airport. Going to be from noon to 3:30. Following day on Sunday, we're going to be down in Los Angeles, 2 to 5 p.m. And Monday, going to be in San Diego from 6 to 9 p.m. And what we always like to tell people is please register for the event so we don't have, the last minute 11th hour crush of bodies, and then we have to annoy the hotel by running chairs in at the 11th hour. That happens. It still will probably happen. But if you think you're going to go to one of those, please register at realwealthnetwork.com/live-events. Once again, register at realwealthnetwork.com/live events. It's free, doesn't cost anything. We just like to have a body count. So anyway, that's going to be fun. We're going to have Jacksonville and Tampa, Florida. So it's going to be kind of a Florida themed event. And once again, the 20th, 21st, and 22nd of October. So save the date, everybody. It is this exact same event repeated. So you don't need to go to all 3 unless you're just really a glutton for information. And like the same information, but just pick one, whichever one goes right for you. And if you're not anywhere near the West Coast and there's no way that you're going to be able to do that, then you're here at this webinar, and that's what counts. You're here now. All right, if you could advance for me. Oh God, this slide. Okay, who is me? Me is me. I'm the investment counselor, and I'm also a director of investor relations. I've been doing real estate for 25 years. I bought and rehabbed about 20 properties in California, Arizona. Then I moved out to Florida, and now I own a bunch of stuff out east, Florida, and got a couple properties with Jacksonville. I've owned those, I think since 2013 at this point, and have some stuff in a couple properties up in Pennsylvania and in Ohio. So I've kind of gotten away from my Western stuff and moved it all over to the East over the last 5 years, and got 12 doors right now, and that's and counting. It's hard working for Real Wealth Network because we get to see all these exciting markets, but I have to walk the walk and talk the talk. And I always advise people, you don't want to be in 7 different markets or 10 different markets. You kind of just want to pick 2 or 3 just for simplicity, and that's I'm kind of doing that, but I'm also kind of not. I'm in 4 different markets. But anyway, next slide, please. Ah, good. Okay. All right. So about the presenter. So the guy you're about to hear from, if you listen to these webinars with any regularity, you'll recognize the voice, the friendly, approachable Jacksonville guy. Um, been around for quite some time, worked with Real Wealth Network for a long time. Also been to many of our events, and as previously indicated, we'll be coming out in about 3 weeks. So without further ado, why don't you take it away?
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Ben. I appreciate you. So I'll just spend the first couple seconds just giving a little bit of background to make it, relative for the listeners that have not heard me speak before. We've been doing single family investments for 20 plus years. We started on the West Coast in Bakersfield, California in 1998. And um, started out really slow there, made a bunch of mistakes in the beginning, was very green to the investment world, but quickly got a mentor under our wing there in Bakersfield and was living in Santa Barbara at the time. You obviously could not cash flow property there, even 20 plus years ago. So we hyper focused on Bakersfield, 1998 to '04, and sold a couple of hundred houses that we purchased between '04 and '06. And the market treated us really, really well there. I know we have a lot of Californians listening, West Coast folks. The run up in, California real estate between '04 and '06 was unprecedented in U.S. Real estate history. So we did very, very well there in our first portfolio. But I always like to share the whole story, to teach you how we can help you, but also help you avoid the mistakes that we have. So we took millions of dollars out of the top of the market in California between '04 and '06, and we plowed those millions of dollars into Florida in '06, '07, and then by 2008, the world was unraveling, global financial crisis, and we felt a lot of pain for the next few years. So we did weather through that storm, got really lean and mean on our overhead, and felt a lot of pain, just to be transparent, but we came through it, and 2013 is when I started to do a lot of business with Real Wealth. I feel like that's when we started to bottom feed, and it trickled along the bottom there, in my opinion, in our niche in Florida for a few years there, because these real estate cycles do take, depending on who you're asking, anywhere between 15 and 20 years. But fast forward to today, how it's relevant and how I can help and serve you as investors wanting turnkey investments. We're back up to a large personal portfolio. We're providing a lot of turnkey investments, which I'm excited to share today with you as our investor base. Ben described we're doing two main products: single family existing homes in Jacksonville, and then we're also building and developing single family and up to multifamilies up to quads across the entire state of Florida. So we'll talk about that in a minute. We have property management. We're completely turnkey. We have about 2,000 doors under management. There's 50 staff at the office at our headquarters in Jacksonville. And whether you decide to invest with us in Jacksonville or Ocala or Southwest Florida, everything is running through our headquarters in Jacksonville from a management perspective. So for efficiencies for our client base and our investor base, you'll have one point of contact. So let's start with Jacksonville. Again, that's where we're headquartered. It's where I'm living. It's where I'm raising my family. It's where I'm the most personally heavily invested. Of the three markets that I'm going to be talking to you about today, Jacksonville is our bread and butter. It's the largest market, the biggest population, the largest economy. But all the fundamentals that I will talk about are alive and well in all three markets. So these 5 key market drivers I've been talking about for 20 years, and I always say if they're timeless and borderless fundamentals. If I gave this presentation 150 years out to the future, I'd still be talking about these 5 key drivers. So in the 3 markets, specifically Jacksonville, Ocala, Charlotte County, we have all of these market drivers in play and alive and well. So the first thing we always focus on is jobs. If you're investing in a market and it does not have solid existing jobs and a strong, business friendly and landlord friendly environment with jobs moving in, then you're going to feel pain. I don't care what else is going on in the global economy. Real estate is very local, and you need to absolutely have jobs. So we have a very diverse economy, specifically in Jacksonville. We're a big port town because we are coastal. I'll address very quickly and digress. We do not invest in flood zones. I know some of the listeners on the call that are out west or anywhere you are in the world have a immediate concern about investing in coastal regions of Florida. We mitigate that by not building in flood zones, so you don't have to worry about that. But back to the jobs, very diverse port town, big medical job source, 20 plus major hospitals, 20 plus colleges and universities, so education is a big job source. We have a large tech sector. We are considered, Forbes called us the logistics capital of the Southeast. So just a lot of job diversity in and around Jacksonville. Next thing that goes hand in hand with jobs in all three of these markets is population growth. We have some statistics that we'll look at, so I won't go into detail right now, but obviously you want to make sure that you have people moving into the market. Affordability is the thing that we focused on hands down from day one, even 20 plus years ago. We always knew that we wanted to invest in positive cash flow. We are not speculative investors. We do a really good job of getting in the way of the equity growth, and all three of these markets are poised for growth, but they're all first and foremost very affordable. Desirable, obviously, I wouldn't have chose this market or this state to invest in full time and move my family in our headquarters, and I wouldn't ask you as our investor network to be, putting your hard-earned dollars into a market that's not desirable. Very, very spread out, user-friendly environment here for living. Low crime. There obviously is a rough area, but we avoid that, obviously. And it's just a very, very good quality of life. Subtropical environment where we are in Jacksonville, so you have really moderate weather, very low risk of hurricane activity, and then the fifth driver is a healthy supply and demand, which we'll talk about, which is a key, fundamental in any investment vehicle. So back to population growth. Jacksonville is today estimated to be a little over 2 million. We have 75 households a day moving into the city of Jacksonville. So that number just continues to steadily increase. I mean, the graph paints a picture here. You can see where we are in 2018 from where we were in 2010. So, almost 20% growth, and that just continues. Alongside the population, jobs would be right alongside that, and the continuous sustainable growth in those fundamentals that I talked about. Median home value also continues to grow. You heard me talking about bottom fishing after the global financial crisis in 2008. We started to bounce off and see very, very slow, stable recovery. This graph dates back to 2012. Obviously, again, real estate is very local, and you actually have niches or submarkets within a major market like Jacksonville. So what we're experiencing today, and I anticipate for the next 3 to 5 years, is anywhere between 5 and 10% compounding growth. Just depends on the product and the neighborhood. But if you just do your own Google research, you'll see that is very realistic. Rent is critical. Obviously, we are cash flow investors. We're long-term buy and hold investors, providing that type of turnkey investment for our clients. So you certainly want to be in a market where you have stable rent and rent that is growing. So you can see here again, the numbers don't lie. Real wealth neighborhoods are obviously well below the national averages because we want to be investing in that very affordable sector. Obviously, we're not high-end investors and speculative investors. We're hyper-focused on cash flow, and we'll talk about some of the exciting cash flow and double-digit returns that our investments offer. So what the major media, reputable third-party media sources are saying about Jacksonville in particular to start, You guys probably recognize these names. Certainly Trulia called us the #1 US real estate market to watch. You can see some of these, and most of these rankings are tying back to jobs, which to me is the biggest focus, or should be the biggest focus if you're going to buy and hold rental property. #2 in the nation for developing economics, favorable city for small businesses, most vibrant employment scene, again from Forbes, which is I always like to, my 15 seconds of fame is shared a stage with Steve Forbes at an event in New York City, and got to talk with him offline. And he's personally invested in Florida, Jacksonville in particular, and his media company has given us some great rankings. And then finally, again, Forbes #3 best city in the U.S. for jobs. So I touched on it briefly, but just to reiterate, we are the two ways that we can serve you as our investors or clients are cash now from very healthy, strong cash flows from the rental income. The one thing that's going to keep that sustainable and make it successful over the long term is property management, which I will talk about in a minute. But certainly hyper focused on positive cash flow now. And then we definitely love growth markets. It's risk and reward. I mean, we are obviously coastal city in Jacksonville in particular. Ocala is in the center of the state, and then Charlotte County, where we're building, is in the southwest part of Florida, in the Gulf, on the Gulf of Mexico. So all three of those markets are seeing and experiencing very slow but very stable, consistent growth, somewhere in that 6 to 8% growth phase. So I always like to talk about a holistic approach to real estate investing, and I know that those two words usually don't go in the same sentence, but I always, want to be crystal clear on the best way that my company and Real Wealth can serve you as our investors, are to give you back a freedom of your time. We're dealing with some of the smartest people in the world as our investor base, a lot of engineers, doctors, high-level executives, business owners, very busy professional people. Usually they have, families. So our whole idea here is, yes, we're going to give you cash flow, and yes, you're going to have equity growth, and we're going to try and mitigate the risk and maximize the return, all the common things that you'd be investing in. But the best way that we can serve you as our clients is to give you back a freedom of that time. And after doing this for 20 years and making a lot of mistakes and doing a lot of things right, you're simply plugging into and leveraging off of our 20-year track record of going through these different cycles and different markets and understanding what it takes to mitigate risk. So let's talk about the product and what we offer. We've been rehab guys for the last 20 plus years, meaning buying distressed assets, foreclosures from the banks, from the government, from HUD, from for sale by owners, private individuals, buying them very distressed at discounted pricing, usually having to do a significant amount of rehab to them. A typical rehab would include the big four, either completely replacing or repairing the roof, the air conditioning, the electric, and the plumbing. And then, the cosmetic obvious things of, the bathrooms and the kitchen, gutting those and updating them, appliances, all these things are addressed in the reliable home model. And we offer a lot of that. We're going to look at some of those examples here shortly. Anytime that you're buying a reliable home, rental home from us, the seller is going to provide a 1-year warranty to you. The tenant is going to be in place, so you're cash flowing from day one, and you have property management in place.
Let me just ask a real quick question on the reliable rentals.
Sure.
So, you may not be able to answer this, but on average, how long ago do you think the average reliable rental will have been renovated? Like maybe 3 or 4 years, 1 or 2 years, or is it impossible to say?
No, I can give you a range. I would say in the last 2 to 4 years. Again, looking at this, looking at the cycle and when we started, dipping our toe back in the water after the meltdown, 2014, 2015, 16 and last year. At some time in those last 2 to 4 years is when these homes were purchased, completely renovated, And then now we're doing some, some sales, some resales for existing clients, some sales out of my personal portfolio as well. So.
Okay. Okay, cool. So it's kind of one of those things to where here's an existing house. We renovated in, I don't know, 2014, or 2015, let's say. So that's 3 years ago it was renovated. But there's a 1-year home warranty, and the presumption is that you're selling it for less than you would sell it if you had just finished renovating it. I mean, because obviously there's 3-year-old renovations.
That's correct. So what we're seeing, because we're doing a volume of these on a monthly basis, so we have a lot of experience and track record in dealing with appraisers and inspections. And I mean, this is the world that we live in. So very typical deal would be, we're reselling an existing turnkey for a client in the $130,000 price point. There's comps, and it may even appraise for up to 140, 145. There's a family living in there paying, $1150 a month, depending on the deal. So to answer your question, the buyer, the investor today is getting in with some sweat equity, usually a few grand right up front. And then they have, depending on their down payment or how they're financing, they're getting, low double digit up to higher double digit cash on cash return, just depending on the financing.
Right. Okay, cool. So but the bottom line though is you're selling it for less than you would if you just renovated it, because you know that the renovations are a couple years old.
That's correct.
Perfect. I think that's the point I always want to drive home with people on these reliable home rentals. Is just so they clearly understand how it works. But thank you. Good explanation.
Not a problem. So the next, focus or niche within our markets here in Florida would be what Ben described earlier, a lot of pre-construction and new construction. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I partnered with builder development partner here in Jacksonville. He's a guy that I've been doing deals with since 2006 when we moved here. He actually owns the property management company. So it's all under one roof. The new construction and the management's all under one roof. Very, very strong financing offered for investors for these, very similar to the types of loan products you can get on the existing single family. Keep in mind, these homes are pre-construction, so you're identifying a project and a specific floor plan or home that you want to purchase from us in one of these 3 markets. The process is we get a 3K binder. We start building for you on our builder's line of credit. You're signing a purchase and sale agreement, obviously, at that time. And then about halfway through construction, which can be anywhere between 6 and 12 months for us to be able to complete the home for you, you're required to put up an additional 10% minus the 3K that you've already sent us. So that 10% is then credited at the closing table back to you towards your down payment or your cash purchase. So we are in essence financing 90% of the construction for you. And then when the home is completed, we have really good systems and communication in place with everybody on our team, on the building side, the management side, you as our investor. We're working with your lender. Everyone is working in unison to be able to coordinate your loan to close, the day that the home is finished. So we have really good systems in place for that. New construction is very mitigated risk. To take a step back to Ben's question, you are guaranteed to have less maintenance and repairs on new construction than you are on the previous product that I talked about. Even if we went in and did a phenomenal rehab, it's still a 50, 60, sometimes 40-year-old home that's been renovated. So this new construction is, you're probably going to have a point or 2 less on the cash flow from a cash on cash return, but long term, you're obviously going to have less maintenance and management headache when you're dealing with new construction. 30 days on average is the time it takes for the home to be filled by property management. So you close on the property. They're obviously marketing the property during construction and getting close to completion. And then on average, it takes 30 days to fill to a qualified family from the day that you close. Every new construction home that you purchase with us across Florida comes with a state mandated 2 and 10 builder's risk warranty. 2 years is on the mechanical, So you have a complete warranty from the builder on the electric, plumbing, and HVAC or heating and cooling system, and then a 10-year builder warranty on anything structural. So that would include, obviously the slab foundation, the exterior walls, the roof system. So again, you're going to have much more mitigated risk from a maintenance perspective on this product than you would on the older existing turnkeys. 6 to 12 months is the average time for us to complete the home, and each pro forma that we would share with you, or each project, is going to be very clear and in black and white on the marketing for that particular project on when the estimated completion date is, so that you can be looking into the future to be able to organize your finances. We deal with a lot of 1031 clients, so you have a really close line of communication there. So I talked about property management briefly. We have about 2,000 doors under management, about 50 staff, always growing. It is a third party, just to be clear. I don't own the property management company. My builder partner owns the property management company. It's all under the same roof at our headquarters in Jacksonville. And they would be managing all three markets for you, even if you decided to invest in Ocala or Southwest Florida with us as well. I want to also drive home the fact, because it's really critical for you as our investors to understand, that my team stays involved in helping you oversee the investment for the life of the investment. So I get weekly reporting on Tuesday from management on the performance of your property, again, for the life of the investment. So let's look at the actual investment options here. So this is a little bread and butter, smaller 2-bedroom, 1-bath home, just under 1,000 square feet in Jacksonville. I own a lot of homes within a couple mile radius of here. So again, these numbers are, again, from experience. This would be our lowest price point, just under 80,000. You can see whether you're doing, we give two scenarios here, a 20% down payment and then an all cash purchase. All cash, you're right at the 1%. This home's rented, I believe, right at $800 or a little over $800 a month. So you're right at 1% as a cash purchase. And then as soon as you put leverage on it, you can see you're getting just under $3,000 of cash flow on about an $18,000 investment. So you're into the higher double-digit cash-on-cash return. So yep. This is an example of older home, has been renovated. The investor just put a new roof on it. The windows have been replaced. All the cosmetics inside. The air conditioning is from 2017. So major systems have been updated or completely replaced, and a strong example of an existing turnkey.
Yeah, that's a great one, and easily exceeds the 1% also at that price point.
Yeah, the lower price point homes, Ben, are certainly going to pencil out with the strongest cash flow. Smaller home, people are always asking me, how would you rate these? And I'm always careful to throw that around. But most of our existing turnkeys I would rate in the C class. Like that last one I just showed you would certainly be C class in my humble opinion. Something like this might be like a C plus, B minus, the one that you're looking at here, but you see it's reflected in the purchase. I mean, you're going from a $80,000 purchase to $130,000 purchase. So
and also let me just add to that. It's funny how things work, because it's almost universal. It's not confined to this market, but the rental range is a lot narrower than the purchase price range. So the lower the purchase price, the higher the rent in that range. So in other words, a $79,000 property that you're purchasing might rent easily for $850, $900 and exceed the 1%. I'm being very general here, but then if you're paying $130,000, like the property we're looking at, it rents for more, but it doesn't rent for as much as the price has gone up. So it's like a wider range of purchase price, and within that is a narrower range of rental price. It's interesting the way that works, and it's kind of universal across all markets.
I agree, and just something to sort of piggyback on that, to for the listeners to think about. The product that you're looking at in front of you, obviously very different. 4-bedroom, 2-bath, almost 1,500 square feet, so almost twice as big. The last one was a 2-1. So obviously, in a product like this, in the $130,000 price point with 4 beds, you're probably going to be attracting 9 times out of 10 a young family with children in the school district. If you take a step back at the last property, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, you're probably going to get just, it could be an individual, it could be a young couple with no children. So the larger homes tend to have less turnover than the smaller 2-1s. And that I'm just being transparent and speaking from experience. So
Yeah.
looking.
Absolutely. Oh, and I'm sorry to keep cutting you off. One other thing, we're getting quite a few questions, but I forgot to make that announcement. I always forget it. If you have a question, feel free to type it in. You're watching this live, and we will get to most of them at the end. Just go ahead and type it in the question box, and I see them, and we'll get to them towards the end.
Great. So, obviously, the investors will have access to all these pro formas and the PowerPoint, but you can see that, just bottom line, if you have a $130,000 home like this, and again, these are actually real live deals that we have in our pipeline right now that are available for purchase. So these aren't sample deals; these are actually in our Dropbox and available for investors. 20% down on this home, you're just under $30,000 with about $3,000 a month. Annual cash flow. So you can see that you're a little bit over the 10% mark there as a cash on cash return. So, strong cash on cash return. And again, these markets are definitely poised for growth. We're seeing 6 to 8% compounding growth year over year. Last example of an existing turnkey, and then I think we'll start to look at the new construction. Again, smaller home, almost identical to the first one that we looked at, 2-bed, 1-bath, 937 square feet, very similar price point, a couple grand below the 80K. And you can see, putting leverage on that, you have a really, really strong cash on cash return there. You're getting up into the, well over 20% cash on cash return with $3,800 of cash flow on a $18,000 down payment. So definitely, if you're looking at strong cash flow, the smaller, lower price point homes are a great option for you. So from here, we'll shift towards new construction. To manage the listeners' expectations, if you're working with us and our team here in Florida, probably I would say 70% is going to be new construction as far as a volume of inventory and new opportunities coming down our pipe versus 30% of the older existing turnkey that you just heard me talk about. Very excited about all the new construction opportunities that we have. Like I said, I partnered with a builder a few years ago. He's a guy I've been doing deals with since, for a decade plus now. So we have a long-standing relationship. And I did explain that it is pre-construction. So again, it's bullet pointed here on what to expect. You identify a project, a particular home, whether it's a single family or a quad, $3,000 non-refundable deposit. You sign a purchase and sale agreement. Approximately halfway through the building, which can be anywhere between 6 and 12 months, you require that additional 10% minus the 3K that you've sent. And that allows us to complete the home for you on our builder line of credit, and then you close on your loan when the home is complete and will appraise. So it's a very, straightforward scenario, but just want to be clear that it is a 6 to 12 month lookout. You are locking in at the sales price today, and we are in a market that is, slowly and stably growing. So, you don't want to go too far out into the future, obviously, because interest rates are rising, and I know that's a concern of investors. But you pick up one end of the stick, you pick up the other. You're locking in at the sales price today. You might not need to close for 12 months in a market that's growing 5 to 10%. But you are not able to lock in your interest rate until between 60 and 90 days from completion. So again, we have a very open line, systematic line of communication with you as our investor that has one of these being built. and we let you and your lender know, hey, we're 60 days from completion. Let's lock in your rate, and then you close on your loan when the home is completed. So the first new construction opportunity that we'll look at right now is in Jacksonville. These are all quads. So we purchased this 15-acre parcel. It's in the south side of Jacksonville. This is A-class all day long, not your typical piece of dirt that we're able to get in the city of Jacksonville. But we've been working on this one for a while. We literally have, it looks like 4 lots left in there. Again, these are all quads. All of the waterfront, that's a man-made lake there that you can see in the left side of the picture. All of the waterfront units are sold, and we have lots 25, 6, 7, and 8, which you can see sort of in the center of the screen there by that mature tree line towards the back of the community available. Just to, bottom line the numbers, these are pre-construction quads, so 4 family units. Just under 530 is the purchase price, and the gross rents are about $4,900 a month. So you're just below the 1%, brand new construction quads in an A-class neighborhood in Jacksonville. So I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't normally get excited about projects, but this one I can honestly say I am excited about, just because it's in an area that we don't normally are able to develop or buy dirt in and make the numbers work for everybody.
What was the, if you mind me asking, what was the price of 1 through 15? Was it more than 529?
Yes, the waterfront lots were, I think, 5 to 10 grand more than the units in the back.
Okay.
But the square footage, the floor plans are all identical on all of the buildings. The only advantage of the 1 through 15 is that they had a water view.
Right.
And this is the actual breakdown of the numbers for that same exact project. So this is the quads that I just showed you. 529 purchase. You have a down payment. You're going to need to put 25% down. Any up to 4 units, they're going to want. I'm sorry, if you're buying a quad, most lenders are going to want a minimum 25% down.
Right. So we anything duplex, 2 unit, 2, 3, or 4 unit, you need to put 25% down.
Yeah, you have 2 scenarios there. One is all cash, which I'm actually dealing with a lot of, even in this price point, a lot of cash buyers, because I'm helping a lot of 1031 clients. And while we're talking about that, 1031 clients on pre-construction can be tricky, because again, these projects are 6 to 12 months out. And obviously you have a 6-month deadline once your clock starts ticking on your 1031, but we can talk offline about that. If you have a pending 1031, we can see how we can help you. So the next project is, this is a single family home project in Jacksonville called Pritchard Pointe. We actually had this project announced a few months ago, and then we had a little hiccup with the permitting and pulled it back, and now we are 100% clear to go and start marketing the property again. So excited to be offering this one. Again, I would say this is easily an A-class neighborhood, has some amenities we don't normally have in our single family projects in these price points. It has pool and a little children's park. You have lakes throughout the community. This is an interesting community that we are building phase 3. You can see the 21 lots there, 21 rental homes in phase 3. And we are coming in to an existing community where D.R. Horton built out phase 1 of 57 existing homes. I'm sorry, actually it's well more than 57 lots that are already in phase 1. We don't have phase 1 in this slide. So there's already an existing community here. An HOA is up and running, a pool, a children's park. We've come in and are doing phase 3 and offering just a very small percentage of the entire community to investors like yourself. So there'll be close to 200 homes in here when the community is built out, of which about 21 will be offered to investors. So about 10% landlord and about 90% owner occupied. So we are offering 5 different floor plans in here. So you have quite a bit of options, and you can see that the square footage is really what's going to drive the purchase price as well as the rent. As the square footage goes up and the home gets bigger, you're going to get a little bit more rent, and the price point is going to go up relative to the rent. So here is a nice simple overview of the actual community. 240 total units when phase 4 is completed. We are doing a very small niche of that, just 21 single family lots, which you can see the lots that you have to choose from here in this slide. And the 107 that are already built out were built out by D.R. Horton in 2007. D.R. Horton is obviously a very well-known national builder. They do a good product, and they're actually building some homes in phase 2 at the other end of the community as we speak as well. So this is how the numbers play out. We gave giving one example of here, sort of down the middle, 3-bedroom, 2-bath model, 1,451 square foot. Purchase price is $183. Depending on how you're financing or whether you're cash, again, you're going to be dealing with really strong cash-on-cash returns here in an A neighborhood that's an already existing community with a strong HOA and some nice amenities. This is in the northwest of Jacksonville, so up in a region, to give you some frame of reference, about 15-minute commute to downtown. You're about 10 minutes from the National Airport, which is also on the north side, and you are probably a 3-minute drive to a very large Amazon distribution center that Amazon just completed just down the road from us. So a really, really good location and some strong cash flow here. So let's completely shift focuses here. I've been talking about Jacksonville for the majority of the call because, again, that's our home market where we're headquartered. But we have some great opportunities in a couple other smaller markets. We'll start to talk about Charlotte County, which is actually not far from where Ben is in Florida. It's considered Southwest Florida. You are right between, the main market is Punta Gorda there, so you're right between Sarasota and Fort Myers. And we are building, to start, we're building some duplexes down there. Very, very affordable, brand new construction. Again, these are pre-construction, so you can see the completion date or estimated completion date is summer of next year. You have about a 7 to 9 month build out from when you purchase, but you lock in at the sales price of just under $280 today. These are duplexes, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, or each side is about 1,000 square feet, as you can see from the description at the top there. And then really, really strong cash flow. Gross rents are about $2,500 a month, and your purchase is right at $280 there. So you're just a little bit below 1%, but you have brand new construction and locked in at the sales price today.
Hey, I've got a quick question that pertains not to the slide you were just on, but one earlier. There was an earlier slide that it said, and the question is, why is the completion of new construction spring 2020?
On the
6 months. Yeah, there we go.
No, 6 to 12 months on the. I think that question is referring to the quads in Jacksonville. Right. So we have, we have, horizontal, we have plat maps that we need to be recorded. We're just trying to do a really good job of managing the buyer or the investor's expectations on how long each project will take. Those units that question's coming in on, they're literally the last 4 units that will be completed in that project. So you're going to be at the back end of that project, which is why it pushes you out into 2020. Hopefully that answers that question.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that just to recap on the Punta Gorda option there, it is Southwest Florida, brand new construction duplexes is what we're offering there right now. We will have some triplex and quads coming up, but what we have to offer you today while we're on the call is these duplexes, pre-construction, and really strong cash flows. So let's again shift focuses. This is the third market. It's in the center of the state. It is called Ocala. It is what we consider a bedroom community of the major metro of Orlando. You're about an hour drive north of Disney and downtown Orlando. And Ocala has its own little economy there. You have steady population growth. We're building these communities about 15 minutes east of the fastest growing retirement community in the country called The Villages, which you can Google. So we're getting a lot of our tenants and buyers and workers coming out of that Villages project. There's 350,000 homes in that community, that retirement community that's just west of us. So lots of good jobs, very, very affordable in Ocala. You're going to see it's a smaller market. We're able to offer brand new single family homes just over the 140 price point. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage model, just over 2,000 square foot. And you can see whether you're putting down 20% or it's an all cash purchase, you're left with, again, really strong cash flows. We're doing our numbers at 5.25 on 30-year money. I think that's very realistic if you're an A-paper buyer or borrower. And you can see what kind of cash flow you're left with in these two scenarios.
And no HOAs.
No HOAs in these particular single family homes. So great question. These are what we call infill lots, Ben. So this is not a community that we're building like I showed you phase 3 of Jacksonville after DR Horton's already built a community. So these are what are called infill lots. So for the listeners, we're going in and buying one lot at a time on an existing street that already has utilities in and families living next door or a couple doors down. And we'll go in and buy these individual lots and build these brand new turnkey rentals for investors like we have on the call.
Got it.
These are the available lots that we have in Ocala right now. So you have a little bit of option to choose from there and a couple different floor models. The 1239 square foot floor model is obviously the 141 price point. And then a little bit larger square footage, the price point goes up a few grand and you get about $100 more rent. So you can see the price points are very relative to the square footage and the rent that you get. But these are, I talked about affordable as a key fundamental in cash flow. As far as new construction goes, these are certainly going to be the most affordable of any new construction that we have to offer in any 3 of the markets. So if you like single family, then this is definitely a good option for you from an affordability standpoint.
All righty. Good deal.
Great. I think that's, I know it was a lot of information there, but looks like we got some time for Q&A.
And that's good because we definitely have some cues. So let's see. How about just talking? Well, I've got this one general question. We'll do that before we get to the specifics. How would you rate landlord-tenant relations and just the laws in the state of Florida compared to, say, other states?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can only speak from experience. So again, full-time investor in California in our first portfolio, which was hands down a tenant-friendly environment. The state of Florida is what we consider a very conservative, pro-business and landlord-friendly environment. So to give you like a real-life example, tenant stops paying. That happens when you're a landlord, believe it or not. You have a 30 to 45 day sheriff lockout if it has to go through the courts and the full eviction process. So, my experience comparing that to California is like apples and oranges. I had, dragged out without getting paid for 9 to 12 months before the tenants were finally evicted. In general, in the state of Florida, very landlord friendly. They're out in 30 to 45 days from my experience. I honestly don't usually let it go through the eviction process. I'll actually pay them to get out in 5 business days if they can't pay the rent.
Got it. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and answer this question. Florida does not have state personal income tax. How does this affect investments in Florida? I understand speaker is not a tax expert, and no speaker is not, and either am I, but I mean, the bottom line is I don't think it really affects too much other than it might make some people more likely to invest in Florida. What it means is that as a Florida resident, if you own that property, say you own a property, forget as a Florida resident. If you own a property in Florida and it generates, let's just use round numbers, it generates $5,000 of positive cash flow, which is income to you. If you live in California or some other state that has state income tax, then California is going to want their pound of flesh. I mean, you're going to have to pay taxes on your gains, not only to the feds, but also to the state. If you live in Florida, you do not have to pay to the state because the state doesn't have state income tax. If you don't live in Florida, it really doesn't affect you much because you pay taxes on the gains. So it really, it just depends on where you live, where you're taxed at, where whatever the rates are where you live.
Yeah, can I just piggyback that, Ben?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Totally. Again, I'm not an accountant, and I think you did a great job of explaining it. But I will say that, irregardless of where you live or work, if you are investing in the state of Florida with us or with somebody else, the fact that there's no state income tax is a huge benefit for us as investors, irregardless of where you live. Because what's happening is you have companies like Amazon moving large distribution centers into Jacksonville in the state of Florida because they recognize they're going to have a huge savings in no state income tax if their companies are headquartered and they're paying their employees in the state. So when we moved our headquarters as a real estate firm from Bakersfield in '06 to Jacksonville, I mean, we saved 13% off the top. So that's I think the way that it benefits you as the investor or the listeners on the call, which is, it's a great question, is it's creating a ton of jobs, which is pumping the economy with money, and bringing up the rents and the values.
Right. Yep. No, it definitely a good point. I'm really glad that you added that. Thank you. All righty. Let's see. How would you? Got a question on 1031s, and I know that you addressed it, but it bears potentially repeating. How can you do a 1031 and still keep the time frame? In other words, if you've got someone who they'll identify within their 45-day range, but they have to close on the property within 6 months of their close. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so the easiest answer and the best and most risk mitigated way for me to help investors that have 1031 exchanges that are current is to put you into the existing turnkey product that I talked about in the beginning of the presentation, because obviously the home is renovated, there's a family living in there, it's under management, you're simply taking over a lease, and you can actually close on that during your 45-day identification window because it's already performing. If we're talking about investors that have 1031s that are interested in new construction, which I'm helping a lot of, I need to get on the horn with you in advance of your 1031. So you need to be reaching out to me. You know that you have a home in, say, San Francisco you're going to be selling. It's got great equity. The lease is going to be expiring in December this year. You actually need to get on the horn with me immediately now so that we can actually put property under contract for you, new construction, pre-construction in the state of Florida. And then when your home is put on the market and sold in California or wherever you're selling that investment property, that front end property, we've already started building for you in advance, and we can then edit the contract and the purchase and sale agreement to fall within that 45-day identification window. And I know this sounds real creative, but I've gone over this with lawyers and 1031 experts. It's totally legitimate and realistic. I'm helping clients do this. So if you have a 1031, we just need to have a conversation offline because it's a little bit of a, there's some moving parts there. The easiest answer is the existing turnkey would be your best scenario.
Got it. Okay, here's a question, and I don't remember because it was a few slides back, but will the rentals in the Pritchard Pointe area, will they have HOAs and have HOA fees and rules, or are those infills?
They will. They are in an existing HOA, and I want to say the HOA in there is $250 annually. I apologize if I'm misquoting that, but it'll be on our individual pro formas in our Dropbox. We always disclose if there's an HOA in there and exactly what it is for each individual project. That one, Pritchard Pointe, absolutely has an HOA. I mean, you have amenities of pool and lakes and a children's park in there, so there is an HOA.
Got it. Okay, this is a very technical question. It requires a crystal ball, which I know you don't possess, but I'll just ask it anyway, and then we can just kind of pontificate a little bit. Are there any projections of anticipated values post-construction? In other words, you're locking in the price now, and you're going to close in 6 months. So are there any projections of anticipated values post-construction for any of these projects, and how should an investor view this from the standpoint of a correction coming?
Great question. So yes, we lock you in at the sales price today, and then it could be a 6 to 12 month build out. So I don't have a crystal ball. The wind, I can tell you right now, is at our back in these 3 markets in the state of Florida, but that could change tomorrow, and I can't control it. But I obviously look at demographics. I mean, we as builders, developers have millions of dollars invested into these projects and the horizontal development of building roads and putting in utilities in some of them. So it's a long-term, patient play for us. Our experience from the many projects that we've already built and closed for ourselves and for investors are values are coming in a few $1,000s over what we're locking you in at on the purchase and sale agreement. The reality is that whether it's new construction or existing turnkey, if you hired 3 different appraisers and sent them out, you're going to get 3 different numbers on the same exact home. But to manage your expectations, our experiences, you're going to be stepping into a few grand of equity there when you close, because again, you're a 6 to 12 month outlook.
Right, makes perfect sense. All right, here's another question that'll be a softball for you to answer. Do you recommend flood and or hurricane insurance, and why is the cost not factored in? So what type of insurance does he have in his number? So let me give the easy answer, and then you add to it if you don't mind. The numbers that you are listing are not for flood insurance, because these properties are not in flood zones. The numbers that you're listing for insurance is for an average policy, just your standard hazard insurance, which does cover hurricanes. Hurricanes usually have a different deductible, slightly higher, but the only thing that your standard hazard insurance does not cover would be water rising from the ground, i.e. flood. And you can certainly get flood insurance if you like, but since these properties are not in flood zones, you are not required to do so. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just nailed it. I wouldn't have answered anything different. Yeah, we're not in flood zones. We don't obviously put those numbers into our pro formas because it's not necessary.
Right. I mean, you have to be, flood insurance, I mean, I live in Florida. I moved here 3 years ago. It pretty much kills the cash flow. I mean, to have an extra $1,200 annual policy or $1,500 or whatever it is, depending on exactly what your elevation is, where the property is, it pretty much just kills the cash flow or puts a serious dent in it. And since these aren't in flood zones, there's really no need to do that. I mean, you can, and it's a good idea to, maybe. It just depends on how nervous you are.
It's very subjective and personal. I totally agree.
Yep, perfect. All right, let's see if we have any other questions. I think that about covers it. Yeah. All right.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to be out there in a few weeks and obviously meet some people in person and see everybody on the team.
Yep, absolutely. And I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll look forward to see you in 3 weeks. And go ahead and advance, see if there's another slide on here. Usually there's a kind of a recap. So the event is coming up that you're going to be at, as well as our Tampa affiliate, the 20th, 21st, and 22nd, all in California, 20th in San Mateo, 21st in Los Angeles, 22nd in San Diego. If you're interested, come and register. Please go to the website, register in advance, just so we have a body count. We always like to have a body count. And so the next thing, if you're interested in learning more about who we've heard from today or anything else, please contact your investment counselor, or IC for short. If you don't have an investment counselor, it's free. It's really no big deal. We just have a quick conversation with you, usually about 20 minutes, half an hour long, kind of find out what your goals are, what you'd like to do, what your timeline is, and then we'll suggest certain markets. And a lot of people call us and they know exactly what markets they want, and that's completely fine. And then after we hang up with you, we send you the market contacts, and then you can reach out directly. So if you're interested in talking to Jacksonville, getting a little more detail, just email your investment counselor. Hey, you remember me? I'd really like to get information on Jacksonville, and we will right away send you the contact information. And if you have not had a strategy session with an IC, then there it is right there in front of you. How do you get one? How do you sign up for one? It's quick, it's easy, it's free, and we highly recommend it. And that way you're in like Flynn and you can get the contacts for the various markets and the various affiliates that we have. And that about does it for this week. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll do it again next week. Same time, every Thursday. Once again, this is Ben Smith. I'm with the Director of Investor Relations for Real Wealth Network. We're here every Thursday. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thanks.